I'm Haley B. Miller, and this is Ohio Politics Explained, a podcast where you give us 15 minutes and we give you all the news you need to sound smart and impress your friends. Welcome back to Ohio Politics Explained. It's been another one of those weeks. Today, we'll discuss the latest news out of Springfield, threats against the Secretary of State's office, what happened with the Issue 1 lawsuit, and how Ohio youth prisons are faring a year after our team's investigation. Joining me today is Anthony Shoemaker.
Hey, Haley. How's your month been? It feels like a month this week, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's, what did I say in the newsletter? What a year this month has been? I think, yeah, that tracks. So let's start with Springfield. The city is still reeling after former President Donald Trump repeated baseless rumors that Haitian migrants are eating pets. Schools and government buildings have faced dozens of threats, all of which turned out to be hoaxes. I talked to Mayor Rob Rue this week, and he told me Springfield wants out of this, quote, political vortex that they find themselves in. Locals are also exhausted and frustrated. Meanwhile, Trump said he plans to visit sometime in the next couple weeks. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, Trump at a rally in New York said he's planning to visit Springfield in a couple of weeks. He also, had the numbers all wrong about immigrants in Springfield. He said 32,000 Haitian immigrants had come to Springfield in recent weeks, doubling the population of the beautiful city, he called it. Springfield has seen about 15,000 to 20,000 Haitians come over the last 4 or 5 years. So this has been a gradual process. It's not like it's been overnight. There's also been there's a little Haiti neighborhood in Springfield. There's about 7 grocery stores and restaurants. So this isn't like something that just happened, like Trump was saying in his speech the other day in New York. But the city kind of wants this spotlight to be turned off. They're kind of done with it. Right.
And I think, local officials and Governor DeWine have pointed out that there are legitimate challenges that come with your population increasing by like 25%, whether it's healthcare, the economy, housing costs. No one is disputing that, I don't think. But their concern is that a lot of the stuff about eating pets or stealing ducks has overshadowed the actual problems.
Yeah, ever since that Trump mentioned the animal eating and the debate, that's been the focus, instead of the focus being on the challenges in the schools. Like the superintendent said, they went from having 200 non-English speaking students to 2,000. That's a challenge that they have to deal with. But, you've also got some of the manufacturers and warehouse leaders, owners there in Springfield who are saying that the immigrants are taking jobs that they weren't able to fill, and they've been, paying their taxes and helping the economy. So you've got kind of this give and take, but it really seems like the national focus, and, a lot of the anger you see online isn't coming from the people of Springfield.
Yeah, and, I'm not quite sure when this is going to settle down, if it does. We know Vivek Ramaswamy is having a town hall there tonight. Trump is saying he might visit. This will almost certainly come up during the vice presidential debate because Ohio Senator J.D. Vance has been repeating a lot of these claims, saying that he's hearing from constituents, but no one's been able to provide any evidence of people eating cats or stealing ducks. There have been police reports and reports to the Ohio DNR about the allegations surrounding waterfowl, which we looked into. But again, no proof, no photos, none of that.
Yeah, and the other thing that's interesting is J.D. Vance has been, claiming that his Senate office has been receiving all these phone calls from people who say, they've seen this or they've heard stories about it happening in Springfield. But other elected officials who also represent Springfield aren't saying that. Where's the phone calls to members of Congress or members of the State House and stuff like that? Crickets.
Yeah, it's a mess, and we'll probably just continue being messy for a while, I think.
At least until the next mess comes along to replace it.
Speaking of threats, unfortunately, Springfield is not the only place dealing with that right now. Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose said his office was the target of a suspicious package, which also went to other election offices around the country. He, too, is receiving personal threats and got extra security from Governor Mike DeWine. Officials believe the package contained a powdery substance that wasn't hazardous, but still getting to be that time, I guess.
LaRose's office was among 15 across the country that received a suspicious package from an unknown source. There were officials in other states like Iowa and Oklahoma that received suspicious packages on Monday and Tuesday. It is that time of year. I mean, and you have to think as we get closer to the election, these kind of threats on election officials are going to continue. And these aren't even in swing states. These are Oklahoma and Kansas aren't going to be hotbeds for the presidential election, but those packages were delivered there as well.
Right. And a colleague pointed out to me that this was sort of a, bipartisan targeting. You have LaRose, that was on the list, who's a Republican. Colorado's Secretary of State, for example, they also received a suspicious package. That person is a Democrat. So I don't know. We don't really know anything at this point about what the motive is, but we do know that it's become very, very difficult to be an election official, from a poll worker in your city to the Secretary of State. And this is the first presidential election since 2020. So unfortunately, I would be surprised if this is the last we see of stuff like this.
Yeah, and you have to think that, election officials are already stretched trying to put elections on under normal circumstances. And every time you have to evacuate buildings or deal with these kinds of threats, it's setting, that work farther and farther behind.
Our next topic is the lawsuit over the Issue 1 ballot language. Backers of the proposed amendment sued after Republicans on the ballot board approved language they said was deceptive. But the lawsuit didn't go as they hoped. The GOP-controlled Supreme Court ordered just a couple tweaks to the language, which the ballot board took care of this week. What changed? What didn't?
Yeah, I mean, they were just very minor, wording changes. The bulk of the ballot language stayed as it was written. The court ruled along party lines 4-3. This is going to be, we've seen the fight over these ballot issues in the last few years, like whether it was Issue 1 in August of last year, the abortion issue, the fight over the language it's consistent now, that they're fighting over this. We'll see. I don't know how many people actually read it. The advertising is really starting on Issue 1 right now. The pro Issue 1 people put out their first ad this week, comparing the anti-side to Jim Harbaugh, the former Michigan head coach, kind of like, cheating is bad, and their politicians are cheating. It seems like the message for the pro Issue 1 people is going to be, get politicians out of redistricting. And the message on the no side is going to be that Issue 1 puts gerrymandering in the Constitution. That's kind of the messaging they're going for.
Yeah, and I mean, this amendment is really complicated. There's a lot of detail to it. As our listeners know, this would create an independent commission for the map-making process instead of what we have now. So, yeah, I think, the more that voters can do their research ahead of time versus try to digest something this intricate at the ballot boxes.
Yeah, I mean, it's very confusing. And then, our colleague Jesse Baumert has kind of been living redistricting for the last few years, and recently published an explainer on Issue 1 with a great graphic that kind of explains how it would work. So for people really wanting the details and to kind of make better sense of it, get the information you're not going to get from the advertising. Check that out on our website.
Let's wrap up today with a new report on Ohio's youth prisons. If you'll remember, our newspapers did an investigation last year that found huge problems with the youth prison system. There's not enough staff to manage the kids, which too often leads to violence. The latest report on 2 facilities found that staff shortages are still a problem, and kids are being physically restrained and locked in their rooms more often than last year. I know you can't fix systemic problems in a day, but not the direction.
Yeah, I mean, there's been no improvement really at the 2 facilities in this report, which are Indian River in Massillon and the Circleville facility south of Columbus. But even being in the spotlight after the investigation came out, nothing's really improving. Kids are spending more time locked in their rooms, like you said. The employee turnover is extremely high. It's almost 60% of workers left their jobs in the Circleville facility. Children are joining gangs, staff are physically restraining the kids at higher numbers than last year. The situation just isn't getting better. There's a hope that eventually, these larger facilities will close and smaller facilities, that are closer to home will open for these kids, but that's going to be a way off if it happens.
Yeah, but that is a big priority for DeWine. Yeah. He's talked a lot about that. So hopefully, I don't know how you attract, prison employees, especially after a lot of these problems have come to life. It does not seem like a super appealing job to me, but...
Right, and the morale is extremely low with those employees, and there's forced overtime, a lot of workplace issues, and people are giving up those jobs. So you you also run into issues where you don't have people there then with kind of institutional knowledge, because the churn is so high. Like you said, it doesn't sound like the kind of job people would be rushing to do.
Because journalism is so fun. And one more thing before you go. Overseas ballots for the November election had to be ready today, which means the voter registration deadline isn't too far off. If you want to vote November 5th, you have until October 7th to register. Visit voteohio.gov for all the details. Ohio Politics Explained is brought to you by the USA Today Network Ohio Bureau. You can check us out on X, formerly known as Twitter, @Ohio Explained.